Swiss parliament voted to withdraw their dormant application to the European Union. Swiss Foreign Minister Didier Burkhalter was quoted saying, quote, "Consider the application as withdrawn," after a vote in the lower Swiss House. The thing about this is that the application was already invalid or dormant, so this is more of a technicality. You might remember that back in 1992, the Swiss opted not to join the European Economic Area, as they now have access to the European Union's single market. And the Swiss government saw joining the EEA as a sort of precursor to joining the EU. We've talked about the benefits and drawbacks. Of course, the advantage that Switzerland has sort of negotiated is through treaties, they have a lot of the effective benefits of being essentially part of the European Union, while they're not bound to a lot of the financial restriction, and they've been basically completely insulated from the financial crises involving the euro, involving Greece, involving some of the other countries. So I think this is pretty interesting and not a stupid move by Switzerland, which, quite frankly, Lewis, is pretty savvy financially, as we've spoken about with economist Richard Wolff.
Yeah. Well, of course, rule number one is you do not switch to the euro, right?
Yeah, seemingly.
Don't touch that. But what I think partially is what's going on here is that when you do become part of the European Union, it's much easier for other members, citizens who are part of the EU, to move to and from all countries involved.
Of course.
And we know Switzerland is not big on that. They
No.
do not want people moving to their country.
Quite the opposite, in fact. They actually passed some pretty controversial quota immigration laws, and they are sort of, they figured out a way to get a lot of the benefits of being geographically in Europe and near other countries that have robust economies in many cases, while sort of protecting themselves from having to participate in the aspects of it that they might not like. And of course, Switzerland is unique in some ways, Rachel, as I know you're familiar with. It's a smaller country. It allows them to do things that not every country can do, that there are tax-free trading opportunities that are restricted only to members of the EU, which Switzerland actually seems okay to not participate in. And as a result, Switzerland is very expensive, but it's also a pretty good place to live if you are earning Swiss wages.
Definitely, because they have a stable kind of banking system and their currency is pretty stable. So I think that while they can kind of reap the benefits of the EU while not actually having to partake in it and then deal with what we're kind of talking about with instabilities with the euro and things of that nature, I think they're in a great position. I think they're very smart.
What I wonder is, Switzerland has always been known for being neutral, dating all the way back to like Napoleonic times. Is staying out of the EU, is that a sign of neutrality? Like, hey, we're here, we're not part of anything? Or at a certain point, if being in the EU becomes the sort of expected default, is staying out of the EU no longer neutral? Like, is it a proactive statement of not neutrality? They're saying, no, we are not part of the EU.
It's right now, I would call it an act of neutrality.
You would?
I would at the moment, yeah. And I don't know. If you don't put your name anywhere and attach it to anything, that's neutral.
My personal investigations of Switzerland, and I've done a couple of them now on trips, are that cheeseburgers are insanely expensive. And this, of course, relates to the very high standard of living. Even people working in kitchens in many cases, which in the U.S. would be earning maybe barely more than minimum wage, are able to live relatively comfortable lives. And of course, as a result, the higher prices that the entire country can pay seem very high when you come even from a country like the United States, even as I did at the time, from a city as expensive as New York City. Zurich was still very, very expensive.